Okay, listen up, you Lisa Eldridge stans. I am one of you. I love everything about Lisa. She is so elegant and intelligent. I feel like she approaches everything and everyone with grace. She definitely sets the standard for technique-based tutorials, for wearable looks that elevate one's natural beauty and work for regular people. Her appreciation, oh my gosh, her appreciation for the history of makeup and the way that she investigates and unpacks and explains that history and makes it accessible is a gift to the contemporary beauty community. I really feel like Lisa Eldridge is the antidote to everything that ails the world of beauty in the 2020s, and I shudder to think what the landscape of beauty would be without her. On top of which, Velvet Dragon is my all-time favorite red lipstick. I'm ready to confess that it has edged out Tom Ford Wild Ginger and is sitting on the throne. But a product only works for me if it works for me. I only love something if it's perfect for me, and I want to give as thorough a review as possible of this foundation, which, though it is extraordinary in many ways, isn't perfect for me, and I'm not sure that it is going to actually work out for me. So in this review, I'm going to take you through absolutely everything that I can think of. I'm going to give you as thorough a review as I'm capable of giving. I'm going to go over a long list of questions that I've set out for myself to answer, and I will tell you what all of those questions are after we get into the meat of the video. I'll also timestamp every section of the video so that you can skip around and watch only the sections you want, or go back and rewatch the sections that you might want to watch. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. My name is Hannah, and gosh, I really love makeup. I quite enjoy doing these deep dive, thorough reviews, but they're not all that I do on my channel. I also like to revisit the makeup that I already own, the makeup that I've owned for a long time, to shower love and appreciation on it, and to remind myself, and hopefully by extension remind you, that the love of makeup isn't all about shopping and buying makeup. It's primarily about using the makeup that you own. And if that sounds good to you, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel. Now let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. These are the questions I'm going to be answering in this video. First, there's a set of questions that are just about my skin, because I think that a review like this, a review of a base product, has got to be in the context of the skin that I'm testing it on. So I'm going to answer the question, what is my skin color? Like, what exactly is my skin tone? What is my skin like? My skin type, texture, etc. And then what do I look for in a base product? Like, what do I want? Because I think sometimes even people with the same exact skin type, or even the same skin type and skin tone, could be looking for different things from each other in a product like this. If you already know me and you know what my skin color and type are, and you know what I'm looking for in a base product, then use the timestamps to skip that section and skip right to the next section, which is going to be about unboxing the product. And I'll show you some really good close-up overhead footage of myself unboxing this. I'll show you its beautiful box. I'll show you the packaging really, really close up. And I'll answer the question, what is the packaging like in real life? The box, the bottle shape, the pump style, etc. Then we'll start swatching, and I'll answer the question, what is the color like in real life? I have the lightest shade. It's shade 1. It's the only one described as extra light. It's described as extra light and neutral. So I'll swatch it and I'll compare it to all of the other base products I have. And again, if that's not relevant to you, if your skin tone is really different from mine and you don't care about how this shade stacks up to other similar colors in different formulas from different brands, you can skip that entire section using the timestamps. The next question I'll answer is, what is the formula like? How does it feel? How pigmented is it? How does it apply? And for that section, I'll be showing you the application footage that I took when I applied this look today. So I applied it in layers with my hands and with a brush. I'll give you good close-up footage of that and close-up footage of the way that it looked at every stage of application. Then I'll talk about wear, how it wears on the skin, how it wears throughout the day. I've been testing it now for several days, and I've tested it with a bunch of different primers and under a bunch of different conditions. And after that, I'll give you my final thoughts. So starting with the questions about my skin. Question number 1, what color is my skin? I have very, very pale, neutral to warm leaning skin. So neutral to yellow leaning, not peach. It doesn't lean peach or orange at all. It leans yellow and might even lean a teeny tiny bit olive, although it's difficult to tell because it's so pale. But I've had some people comment that, and I'm starting to think that there might be something to that. It's difficult for me to find a shade match. Most shade ranges don't actually go tonally light enough to match my neck. And among the shade ranges that do go tonally light enough to match me, it's very, very rare to find one that has a neutral or a neutral to yellow leaning lightest shade. A lot of those super light shades tend to be quite pink. If you happen to have quite light, quite neutral skin and you want a little bit of context, NARS Chantilly is a good spot concealer for me because it's a tiny bit darker than my skin and it's also quite yellow, but the color of NARS Chantilly is not as light as my skin. The very, very lightest shade in the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer is too light for me. It's one of the only things that I've ever found that was really too light for me. It's too light and too pink. The second lightest shade, which is called Pearl, is a good brightening concealer on me. The shade Birch in the Hourglass Vanish Concealer is really, really great for me because it's super neutral. It's very pale and it's so neutral that it almost looks gray sometimes, especially when it's swatched next to other base products. That's kind of the ticket for me. And then the absolute best match that I've ever found in any base product is the Rose Ink Concealer in the lightest shade LX010. This is a recent find and it's been really exciting to be able to just put one product on my face and have it match my neck. Prior to discovering this product, I was almost always using green color corrector to make whatever base product that I used more green so that it would match my undertone better. Green color corrector is a great tool for me because I deal with redness, so it helps to cancel out that redness. But I also find that mixing green color corrector in with most of the lightest shades of things that are on the market takes that shade closer to the actual color of my skin, which is one of the other things that makes me think that there might be a drop of olive in my complexion. Or it could just be the yellow. It could just be like that pale neutral to yellow that the green helps match. Let's talk about skin type. So what is my skin like? I'm 36 years old and I'm definitely starting to develop some fine lines on my forehead and around my mouth and, underneath my eyes. I don't have any fillers or Botox or anything. I've never had any kind of cosmetic procedure done. I mean, you can tell that I don't have Botox, right? This is how you can tell. My skin is dry. I do moisturize pretty heavily and I sleep in a pretty thick layer of moisturizer at night, so it doesn't always look or feel dry, but if I don't take care of it, it leans dry. My skin is also acne prone, but my acne is currently being kept at bay by the tretinoin that's in my Curology formula. Tretinoin, though, is also very drying. So I have dry leaning skin already, and then I'm using this very drying topical for my acne. At this point, I've been using the tretinoin for 9 or 10 months, so my skin is fully adjusted. It's pretty balanced right now, but it isn't at its absolute peak of balance and hydration because of the weather and because I used an acid mask on it a couple of months ago and it's taken me a really, really long time to reestablish balance. But for the most part, my skin is in pretty normal shape right now. And those are the underlying conditions. I also deal with redness, as you'll see in the application footage. When you see my bare skin, you'll see that my face is much, much redder than my neck. And so I'm always looking for base products to make my face match my neck. Which brings me to my next question. What do I personally look for in a base product, a product like this? So I love a skin-like finish on the face. I really love skin to look like skin. I don't like looking like I'm wearing makeup all over my face. So I'm always on the hunt for an extremely natural, extremely skin-like finish. I'm always looking for a base product that you just cannot even see on the skin, like something that's completely undetectable as makeup. Even when I'm wearing a full face of makeup like I'm pretty much doing today, I still like the skin to look very natural. And then I like the makeup to be like what's on my eyes, lips, and cheeks. However, because my skin is so darkened by redness, it's kind of a tall order because I'm usually looking to cover all of that redness and lighten it, bring it up to the color of my neck. So I'm looking for something that can provide coverage to that redness, but still look like skin. Like everyone, I'm always looking for a good match, a good color match. I'm always trying to match my neck, which again has this very pale and kind of yellow cast to it. I know that lots of people don't feel like their skin needs to exactly match their neck, but that's the look that I like, so that's what I aspire to. I'm trying to make my face this color, which is the color that it would naturally be if it weren't darkened by the redness that I get around my jawline and my chin. I'm also looking for ease of use, and this is kind of a big thing for me. I require my base products, all of my makeup really, but especially my base products, to be unfussy. It doesn't need to be bulletproof. It doesn't need to be like the most permanent makeup ever, like something that you'd wear to shoot a movie or for sports or something like that. But I just don't want to be worrying throughout the day. I don't want it to feel delicate because I like my makeup to feel lived in, to look lived in. And in order to comfortably live in it, I need it to be hardy. I don't like feeling like a delicate flower. I was a tango dancer and teacher for 10 years. And during that time, I was very active and pressing my face up against other people's faces when I was dancing. And in my current life, even though I'm mostly inside of the house, I'm also very active. I'm cooking over a hot stove. I'm running around, moving equipment for filming, putting things away, getting things out, changing clothes multiple times a day for filming. And so I need cosmetics that can come with me through my busy day. I hope that that gives you a complete sense of what I'm looking for in a product like this. Now let's move on to the unboxing and a peek at the overhead footage. The outer packaging of the product, the box, is absolutely impeccable. I feel like it manages to be both innovative and futuristic feeling and also classic. It reminds me of packaging for like a high-end perfume or something. The top of the box lifts off and the bottle is standing inside of it like a little spaceship. I love this. This tickles and delights me. And it also reads as extremely luxurious, especially because there's like a velvety type material lining the inside, like a piece of jewelry or again, a fine perfume or something. The most unusual thing about this foundation though, is that it doesn't stand up on one's vanity in the way that it stands up in its little box. And I couldn't tell this by looking at the pictures or by looking at the release video or anything. The way that it sits is, I was worried it was going to roll around, right? It has a flat edge, so it sits like this on your vanity or on your table. I'm looking around for a surface to put it on. This is the only thing that I can find that's like within reach to hold up. This is an old magnetic palette of mine that's all taped up with duct tape. But you can see that's how it sits. So it definitely is stable when you put it down. It doesn't roll around. And even when the cap is off, it's angled so that the pump isn't touching the table. It has been pretty awkward getting used to this. When I'm holding it and I pump a pump out and then I go to put it down, I always feel like I'm just lying a bottle on its side. And it's a weird feeling because I'm not used to doing that with foundation. I feel like it's gonna roll away, or I feel like the pump is going to touch the table. And then I remember, oh, it has this flat side. And then I have to kind of like move it around in my hand and find the flat side and put it down on the flat side. So it's actually, it's very striking and exciting. And it is so fun when something innovative that actually works is done in beauty. And it does work, you know what I mean? It's not clunky in and of itself, but I have found that it's taken a little bit of getting used to, and I have found it a little bit annoying. I think I can go ahead and say a little bit inconvenient that I can't just put it down on its butt like a normal bottle of foundation. And it's also like a storage thing. Like I have about 5 or 6 things that I like to use on my face a lot, mostly illuminators, lined up on my vanity right in front of the mirror. And I can't really put this with them. I can't really put it in the line with them. I have to like lie it down in front of them. So I actually am probably going to keep this little box. I'm probably going to keep the little box base sitting on my vanity in that lineup so that I can just put this in it to store it. I wouldn't go so far as to say that I wish the packaging wasn't like this, because it's not like that. If I were just a regular consumer and I hadn't been taking notes to make this YouTube review, I probably wouldn't even be thinking twice about it. I would probably just think it's beautiful, it's a work of art, and I love it. But I've been paying very close attention to every single part of the experience. And I have to say that in practice, there are some things that have just grated ever so slightly about the bottle design. The pump is very beautiful, very luxurious, works effortlessly. And one of the things I love about this, it just pumps out a little bit at a time. And I watched Lisa Eldridge's launch video about this, and she talked about designing it so that it only pumps out a little bit at a time so you can go in layers building. She said she thinks that we tend to often go overboard, put on too much all at once when it comes to base products. And I totally agree with that. I think it's always better to start slow with a base product and build, especially if you're after that natural skin look that I am always after. And I think that Lisa is pretty much always after. So that's just brilliant. The pump works flawlessly. It feels very satisfying to pump. And this is a small thing, but I only had to pump it 2 or 3 times after it first arrived to get that first bit out. It felt like the pump was already almost completely primed. I didn't have to sit there and pump it 30 or 40 times to get the product out. So all of those aspects of the packaging felt very luxurious and perfectly designed to me as well. Next question. This is one of the big ones. What is the color like in real life? It's one of the big ones for me. But again, if you have no interest in this color of this foundation, feel free to skip ahead. I got the lightest shade after some deliberation. I would have gotten those blister packs and done a test and found my perfect foundation shade if I had known in time that that was happening, but I didn't. I didn't place any orders for her new launches and new releases, and so I didn't receive any of those blister packs, and I didn't find out in time to get one before they sold out, to get one in advance of the launch, or to get 2, I think, which is what I would have had to do in advance of the launch so that I could be sure that I was ordering my perfect shade. I did, however, do a deep dive. I watched as many reviews as I could of people who had the blister packs and were like swatching them. And I looked up all of these blog posts. I feel like I consumed every scrap of review information that was available on the internet about the lightest shades in this foundation range before the launch day, because I wanted to buy it and so that I could review it as soon as possible after it launched. The shade range is in these groups of 4. And I think that it's grouped that way because of the sample packs, which have 4 in each. The lightest one has the extra light neutral shade, which is the one I got. And then it has 3 shades, which are, I think one is much yellower, one is much pinker, and one is more peach. And then in the next group down, 5, 6, 7, and 8, the lightest shade, shade 5, is neutral. So there's the extra light neutral shade, and then shade 5 is like 1 shade darker, but it's 5 down the row because it's the next neutral shade. And I did read online that shade 5 is supposed to only be 1 shade darker than shade 1. So it's supposedly just as light as the other 3 shades in the first group, 2, 3, and 4. It's just as light as them tonally, but it's neutral. I was torn between ordering shade 1 and shade 5. I was thinking shade 1 might actually be too light for me because it has been known to happen, again, like in the Makeup Forever concealer range, for example. And actually, the lightest shade in the Sephora Best Skin Ever foundation is not only too pink for me, but also much lighter than my perfect match, the Rose Ink. So I thought that there was a chance that shade 5 would actually be the best match for me. I also thought there was a chance that shade 3 might be the best match for me. That's the one that's light with golden undertones. So apparently the lightest one that leans yellow, as opposed to being neutral. But some of the swatches that I saw online and some of the application footage of people using the blister packs led me to believe that those light shades, as opposed to the 1 extra light, might be just a touch darker than what I prefer. And that was what caused me to go with extra light. Although I was a little bit worried that it would be more pink than neutral, especially compared to my other products. And as you'll see when I start swatching it out, that did prove to be the case. I wanted you to be able to see the way that this shade looks compared to every single one of my other products So I put a long swatch of it down my arm. That also gave the product time to dry. I wanted you to see everything dry on my arm. So putting that long swatch down my arm allowed me to line up every single product right next to it. And as I was swatching through, it dried down so you could see the actual color, the way that it will look on one's skin. At the top, I swatched my 3 best matches, my 3 best base products. So the Rose Ink Concealer, the Hourglass Concealer, and the Makeup Forever Ultra HD Concealer. And I will put all of these products in the description box down below with their shades, the exact shades that I have, so that I don't have to keep repeating it over and over again. And of course, so that you can find these products if you're curious about them. Off the bat, you can see that the Lisa Eldridge foundation is pinker than any of these 3 concealers. And it's also just a touch lighter. Just a little bit lighter. All 4 of them look like they're pretty good tonal matches for my skin, like light enough for my skin. But all 3 of these concealers are a little bit more yellow, or I would actually say a little bit more neutral. And I say that because these 3 concealers, which look so good on my skin, they don't look yellow when they're compared to the Lisa Eldridge foundation. They look gray. They look like they have a drop of gray or even a drop of green in them compared to Lisa Eldridge 1, which looks very peach next to them. Of the 4, the Makeup Forever concealer is the lightest, and then the Lisa Eldridge is the second lightest, but it's significantly more peach than my Makeup Forever concealer, which just looks much more neutral next to it. Then the concealers from Rose Ink and Hourglass, they just look really kind of gray and neutral compared to the other 2. I'd say the one thing that disappointed me the most about the color of this product is that it feels so brightly peach, rather than having that true neutrality. And it makes me wonder if shade 5 would actually be a better match for me or not. Because if this is what the Lisa Eldridge shade range considers to be the baseline, considers to be neutral, then shade 5 is probably also too peach for me. And if it's much darker than this, then it's going to be both too dark and too peach, which is something that I really don't like in a base product. And it also makes me wonder about shade 3, the light with golden undertones. Because if you're starting from a base of peachy neutrality and then you add golden to that, like add yellow tone to that, make it more golden, then that's also going to be too strong of a color for, again, my very, very neutral skin. I'm really curious about the other shades though in this range. I love the range and I love the way that it's described, the way it's broken down. I wish that neutral was more neutral. I wish that neutral meant actually neutral, but it might make more sense if it's in context with actually seeing the other shades in person. So I'm definitely going to try to get my hands on some of those blister packs at some point. They've been all sold out for the entire time that I've been aware of this foundation. I then went on, of course, to swatch all of the rest of my base products next to the long swatch of Lisa Eldridge foundation. And I can't quite remember the order in which I swatched them, but I'll link them in the description box down below in the order in which I swatched them. So if you can't quite see what something is, even though I tried to give you close-ups of all of the names of all of the products, if you need a key for reference for a shade or a product name or a product link, that will be in the description box down below. Overall, the Lisa Eldridge foundation is a better match for my skin than most of my other base products, my foundation products. The concealers, which have gotten really, really close to my skin tone, are a better match than the Lisa Eldridge, but it's better than most of the other ones. The only thing of note that I discovered when I was swatching the rest of them is that the Morphe 2 Hint Hint Skin Tint in the lightest shade, which is called Hint of Ivory, is pretty much an exact color match for Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Foundation in shade 1. It's the closest match for sure of anything else in my collection, and it's a very, very close match. They look like almost the exact same thing. So at the end of this swatch party, I swatched Lisa Eldridge all over the back of one hand and Morphe 2 Hint Hint Skin Tint and Hint of Ivory all over the back of the other hand so that you could see how close they are, comparing those two huge swatches from one hand to the other. Hopefully this will be a helpful frame of reference for some of you out there who have something close to my skin tone and you have my same skin matching woes. And if you happen to have the Morphe 2 Hint Hint Skin Tint and Hint of Ivory, then you know exactly what color Lisa Eldridge 1 will be in person. Okay, the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's move on to talking about the formula. How does it feel in person? How does it apply? How pigmented is it? Etc., etc., etc. And as I move through the facets of this question, I'll roll footage of myself applying the foundation that I have on my face today. The formula is so beautiful. It's creamy, it's lightweight, it's incredibly thin, it disperses evenly and thinly, and it feels nourishing when it's going on. It is absolutely wonderful. In Lisa's video about this product, she talked about how innovative it was, that she designed it from the ground up, absolutely from scratch. And I believe that. I haven't tried like a ton of foundations. I don't wear a lot of foundation, so I haven't tried as many foundations as a lot of people have, but I've tried my share. And this definitely feels like nothing I've ever felt before. It doesn't feel like a serum. It doesn't feel whipped. It doesn't feel like a lotion. It doesn't feel thick. It's also not drippy. When you pump it out, it has some body. When I hold up my hand, it doesn't drip down my hand. But then when I start applying it, it just becomes extremely, extremely thin. And when I say it becomes extremely thin, I don't mean sheer, although it kind of does that, and I'll address that in a second. I mean that it feels physically thin on the skin. It just spreads very thin, and it feels very lightweight. That's the term I guess we use. It's a joy to apply. It is so cosmetically elegant, and it looks beautiful when you start spreading it on the skin. I will go ahead and talk you through the application of this product today. I started by prepping my skin with another Lisa Eldridge product. I used the Seamless Skin Elevated Glow. I have it in the shade Crystal Nebula. It's a little bit dark for me, but I found that it's fine when I'm putting it under pretty much any of the base products that work for me. It doesn't cause a problem. I love how glowy it is, and I love how it preps my skin for product. I feel like it does give me a really smooth, hydrated looking and feeling surface. And that's important to me with this product because it is like a natural finish, but I don't know, I'd call it maybe more of a demi-matte. Like if I don't use something super glowy and hydrating and serumy underneath it, it definitely leans matte really quickly on my dry skin. So I've had the best luck with this foundation using very glowy and very hydrating and emollient products underneath it. And this isn't exactly emollient, it dries down, but it's definitely dewy. And it definitely creates a really lovely surface for any base product to apply atop. I wanted to give the Elevated Glow Serum some time to work its magic, to kind of set into my face and prep my skin. So after I applied it, I did my brows. I put a little wax in my brows and shaped them. I gave it about 5 minutes to dry. I started with one pump of the foundation on one half of my face. I have found that putting one pump all over my entire face, it actually doesn't go very far. That is a very, very light look. And I could see that being great for some people, actually. I mean, that's like almost on the level of a very sheer tinted moisturizer, or even something like the Glossier Skin Tint. Not as sheer as the Glossier Skin Tint, but if you think of all these serum tints that have been on the market lately, I haven't tried all of them. Like I haven't tried the Ilia one, for example, but one pump of this all over the face, it gives me the kind of coverage that I've always imagined that Ilia tint would give me, because it is very skin-like. It feels very lovely. The finish is very beautiful, but it stretches, you know what I mean? You can blend it all over your entire face, and then it blends out so far that it's very, very lightweight and barely there. Visually, it's barely there. So having experimented with it and knowing that one pump can cover the entire face, but it barely shows up, I put the entire pump on the one half of my face. I rubbed that in with my hands because I figured that people who are wanting kind of a tinted moisturizer type of coverage from this product are likely going to apply it with their hands. And I do think that this is a really good application of this product for this kind of consumer, someone who just wants a barely there hint of skin tint. Maybe someone who usually uses a tinted moisturizer but wants something just ever so slightly more makeup-y than that. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this product to somebody who's looking for something like that unless that person has quite dry skin, which we'll get to in a little bit. But that first application, using my hands on half my face, was designed to basically give you a sense of how this product can look when worn that way. But I almost always apply my base products with a brush. The brush is my tool of choice. I love a brush. I don't fuzz with a sponge. I don't mess with a sponge. And even though I do use my hands sometimes, I find myself reaching for a brush more frequently. So for the second layer on that same half of my face, I went in with a brush and I did what I do with my concealers, with my other products of choice. I just went in and buffed it into my skin and tried to really push it in and make it one with my skin. And it applied pretty well. I feel like going in with a brush for the second layer with this product, it is a little bit prone to streakiness. It doesn't build quite as well as I thought that it might, and not quite as well as other more pigmented products that I've worked with before. I feel like when I was applying the second layer, the brush was picking up the first layer and mixing the two layers together, and then just reapplying the entire 2 pumps in one layer to my face. The end result was fine, but every time I've done it, it has just felt a little bit delicate. It has felt like I've had to pay close attention to make sure that there's no streak or patch left when I'm finished with the application. It's not difficult to make sure there aren't any streaks or patches. It's not like I'm fussing with it. I just have to pay very close attention. It's not exactly blending itself in the way that some base products do. I wanted you to see what 2 pumps look like on half of my face compared to a bare face, so you can really see the effect that the foundation has, and you can really see the color, right? Compared to the redness of my skin, the way that it is naturally, and compared to my neck with the context of the way that my skin would look if it didn't have anything on it. Then I went in and I got the other half of my face all caught up. I put 2 pumps on the other half of my face and blended them out with a brush. This foundation is supposed to be self-setting, and I wanted to give it today the best possible chance of really setting down so that I could demonstrate to you how it wears after it has purportedly set on your face. So I actually did my whole entire eye look. After I had applied 2 pumps to each side of my face, blended them out, gotten them perfect, seamless, and again, so beautiful. The finish on the skin is so lovely. It goes on so smoothly. It feels like a serum that's not drippy, like a serum quality, but it's got a little bit more body than a serum. Just exquisite. So after I had applied it, I went and I did my entire eye look. A couple of eyeshadows, a little bit of mascara. I would say the whole thing probably took 10 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, maybe 15 minutes. Definitely time enough for the setting, the self-setting to happen. And I did that. I gave it time to set before I went in with powder or blush or anything, because I wanted to demonstrate to you what might actually be for me the biggest drawback of this foundation in practice. And to demonstrate it, after I had done my whole eye look, and again, it had been like 10 or 15 minutes since I finished applying the foundation and I hadn't touched it, I gently pressed my finger onto my cheek and lifted it up. And you'll be able to see in the footage that it left a huge fingerprint behind on my face. That's not necessarily unheard of for a good makeup product. I mean, not every single makeup product has to be bulletproof enough to resist that kind of touch in order to be a good product, but it's not what I consider to be self-setting. When a product does that, when it lifts up like that just from a gentle touch, that makes me feel like I have to set it with powder. And that also indicates to me that if I go in with a cream product on top of it, like a cream blush, it's gonna mix a little bit with the blush. It's not gonna be something where I'm like just layering the blush on top of something that is completely set to my face. Because if a touch like that from my finger lifts it up, then a touch from a brush covered with cream blush is going to lift it up. And going in with my finger to apply cream blush is definitely going to pick it up. I don't particularly mind that when it comes to cream blush, because I feel like if blush is coloring my cheeks, it's okay that there's not a base product underneath it. I don't need to cover my skin and then add color to my skin. It's okay for the blush to basically be directly on my bare skin. So I don't mind when that happens. It's just worth noting. It reminds me a lot of the Fenty Ease Drop Blurring Skin Tint, which is another foundation product that I reviewed that behaved exactly like that. Beautiful finish, unless you have very dry skin, which again, we'll get to in a moment. Beautiful finish, but it did that. The Fenty Ease Drop did exactly that. It would set as far as it was going to set, and then a touch on my skin, a brush on my skin, or a touch with any other kind of makeup product or makeup brush would disturb it and reveal my bare skin underneath. Now, comparing this to something like the Rose Inc Concealer, my holy grail base product, and I kind of use concealers and foundations interchangeably, so that's why I'm comparing a foundation to a concealer. I know that for some people that might not make sense, it might not sit quite right. For me, I feel like blush, bronzer, and highlighter are kind of like all the same thing. It's just stuff you put on your cheeks. I feel like foundation and concealer are all the same thing. Some are very high coverage, some are very sheer coverage, and they're all base products. I'm using these things like paints rather than like things that fit into specific boxes. That's why it makes sense for me to say something like this. Comparing this product to my holy grail base product, the Rose Inc Concealer, it's not as though the Rose Inc Concealer is so bulletproof that it's never going to transfer at all. You know, if I were to put this on my cheek and then press my finger firmly and then lift it up, some product probably would come off on my finger. But this is extremely full coverage, so it wouldn't leave a spot behind on my face. Even if some product picked up, it wouldn't disturb the product on my face and you wouldn't be able to see. It wouldn't leave a fingerprint. It wouldn't lift up to reveal my bare skin. And the thing that the Lisa Eldridge foundation has in common with the Fenty Ease Drop is this sheer buildable coverage situation. So I think that the reason that it's doing that, lifting up and leaving a fingerprint of my bare skin behind, has to do with the fact that it's kind of lightly pigmented. It's like sheer buildable, or not sheer, but medium buildable coverage. It's making me think that with cosmetics like this, base products just across the board, the price we pay when we want one that can be applied in a sheer layer, kind of like a tinted moisturizer, but then can also be built up to more coverage. When we want that, we want something that isn't super packed with pigment, right? And the price that we pay then is we forfeit a little bit of durability. We forfeit that super long-lasting quality that I so prize in my base products because I like to be able to just go about my day without worrying that I'm going to disturb them. In my experience, that kind of durability comes with a very high pigment load because even if a little bit comes off, enough stays behind to retain the coverage that you applied at the beginning of the day. And this it doesn't have that. It doesn't have that. It's got a lot of very beautiful qualities. And some of those qualities have been gained by forfeiting a level of durability. So I have to powder this product because that fingerprint, that worries me. That's definitely something that's going to happen throughout the day. It's not as though I'm touching my face with big greasy fingerprints all the time. It's just a brush, a little brush here, a wisp there, a baby's toe here, a cat's whisker there. I mean, things are touching my face over here, y'all. And I just can't have that. I can't have everything that touches my face leaving bare skin behind. I never powder very much. I don't like a thick layer of powder on my skin, but I like to apply a little bit of powder, especially around the edges, my marionette lines, underneath my eyes, my forehead when it's bare like this, like it is today, and around my jawline. And that's what I did today. I powdered. I also applied the Glossier Cloud Paint in Puff. And this lip look, which is actually another two Lisa Eldridge products. So I got the lip pencil in the shade Intrigue. I've been really curious about this color Intrigue. The lip pencil might be darker than the lipstick, which is supposed to be one of the lightest, if not the lightest, velvet lipstick that she has ever released. Given that it's that, how dark, how pigmented and pink this is quite surprised me. It's much pinker than I was expecting it to be and darker than I was expecting it to be. But the formula is fantastic. Just quick mini review in passing. It's really, really sticky. Very, very sticky and sturdy. It's not slippery. It's a little more difficult to buff out than most lip liners, but I like that because I like to buff out my lip liner to get like a soft blurred edge. But often when you buff something and blur the edge, it's kind of delicate. Again, it's something that's going to wear away over the course of the day. This, you can buff it, and then I feel like that buffed edge is like absolutely bulletproof. This is a very long wearing product, and I quite like that. It's not quite emollient enough though to wear all over the lips as a lip color and just go. I mean, one could do that, but it almost feels like a liquid lipstick to apply it that way. So I put it all over my lips, but then I put a little bit of Kitten Mischief on top of it to make it a bit more comfortable. I know it's been a long time since I referenced the list of questions. I hope you're not feeling too at sea. I'm still answering the question, how does the product apply? I'm basically about to give you my final thoughts on the look after I applied everything on top of it and was finished. So 2 things. 1, the shade match is a little bit off for me. Again, it's better than some of the base products that were already in my collection. Like it's better, for example, than the Sephora Best Skin Ever foundation. And if I were choosing between them, I would definitely choose the Lisa Eldridge. And I have liked this foundation because it is so bright. So I appreciate that it's as light as it is. It's just a bit peachy pink for me compared to my neck and compared to the concealers, again, that have that gray tinge that I love so much. And it's workable. Like I do think that especially at a distance and especially with these lights, my skin looks fantastic today. I mean, come on. Like I'm not over here being like, it looks like garbage. In the camera, like from this distance, it's lovely. And even the shade match, I think probably looks great. I don't think that anybody would look at me, especially not look at the footage and be like, oh my gosh, that woman's face is an entirely different color from her neck. But because I deal with redness, because I am always on a mission to get that redness canceled out, when my face is a different color from my neck, even slightly in the direction of peachy, in the direction of red, pink, or peach, it's just a pet peeve of mine. So that is a little bit of a disappointment. And the other thing that's going on my face right now we're moving into the question, how does it wear throughout the day? Which I've definitely been touching on, talking about leaving the fingerprint, needing to set it with powder, etc., etc. But this is the full and complete answer to this question, how does it wear throughout the day? It just isn't wearing well for me. And this is, I think, like the 5th or 6th day today that I've applied it. And it just hasn't been wearing all that well for me. The powder doesn't agree with it very well. Right after applying the entire look, I gave you a close-up. I tried to capture some close-up footage of the slightly dry skin right at the top of my forehead and the slightly dry skin that's underneath my eyes. And you can see how it clings to dry patches on a dry skinned face. This skin doesn't always look dry. When my face is bare and moisturized especially, but even just bare, you can't see those dry patches. It's not like I'm dealing with very dry skin right now, right? This is kind of normal for me. And again, my skin's pretty balanced right now. A little bit on the dry side, but pretty balanced for me, for a dry skinned person. And there are just a couple places on my skin where directly after application and the addition of powder, and it might partly be the addition of powder, but you should be able to add powder to a product like this without this happening. I think it's the combination of the two because I use this powder with all of my other products and it doesn't do this with them. There are just some parts of my face at close range that don't look very good and on which you can absolutely see the makeup. It really, really looks like I'm wearing makeup on these parts of my face where it's clinging a little bit. That's directly after application. And now, a couple of hours after application, it's breaking up all over my chin and around my nose. I'll try to give you a close-up now. I do think that it would look much better if I hadn't applied the powder. But I feel like I have to apply the powder to get it to set. So this is what I've been struggling with over the course of these several days that I've been testing it out. The thing I will say for it is that it's pretty easy to repair. I'm going to do it right now. I'll try to do it at closer range. So even with powder on top of it, going in just with the brush that I used to apply it a couple of hours ago and just kind of like pressing and buffing, it now looks gorgeous once again, right? It just kind of seamlessly pressed itself back together and left like a smooth and skin-like surface behind. That is a fantastic quality, possibly one of the best qualities that a product like this could have, like above almost everything else. And that is also true like with the fingerprint thing. Like if it gets a dent in it, you can easily smooth it over just with your fingers. It's not like when you try to repair something like that, it just wipes away and it becomes more and more of an issue. This has also come to bear with like changing my lipstick, my lip products. This is another how does it wear throughout the day thing, especially for me. Yesterday, I had this foundation on and I was filming a couple of videos during which I had to remove and then reapply lip gloss. And every time I wiped a lip product off, there would be a whole strip of bare skin on my upper lip. Wiping my lips off with a napkin or a paper towel or my finger or washcloth or something, even trying to be precise, everywhere that my finger or paper towel touches, it removes this product entirely from my upper lip. And it leaves like this big stripe of bare skin, which is also something that the Fenty product used to do. That was one of the things that I didn't like about it. So that's like, I've got like this whole face on and I start removing a lip product or buffing the edge of a lip product with a brush, which I almost always do no matter what kind of lip product I'm applying. The brush would simultaneously buff the edge of the lip product and remove the foundation above it. And that was very frustrating. I actually dealt with that today when I was applying this lip. So that's different. My Rose Ink Concealer doesn't do that. My other base products that I use consistently don't do that. Again, they're more pigmented. So they don't like wipe completely off the skin, even if they get disturbed. That was a little bit of an issue, but it's very easy to repair. So yesterday when it was like 4 or 5 times I changed my lip product while I was filming, and I wiped this product entirely off my upper lip, half of my upper lip every single time. And then every single time I just went and buffed it with a brush or even just a little with my finger, and it was fixed and it was covered again. So it's not a total deal breaker, right? It's something that I can deal with this product because it repairs itself, but it is different from my hardier base products and requires a little bit more labor and is a little bit less convenient. And it also makes me really wary of scratching my nose or wiping if my nose is dripping during the day, which it has been these days quite a bit. I'm afraid to touch my nose during the day because it's a little harder to repair this kind of product around one's nose. And I just feel like even if I just go, and rub my nose or like touch my nose gently with a tissue, based on my experience with other parts of my face, I just know that it's going to remove all the product from around my nose. Like everywhere a tissue or finger touches, it's just going to be like bare skin underneath. So I've had the unpleasant and annoying feeling wearing this product over the past 5 or 6 days that every time I touch my nose, if I care enough to do this, I have to go to a mirror and use my fingers to repair the foundation if I want to repair it. So those are my issues with wear throughout the day. There have actually been quite a number of issues for me with wear throughout the day with this product. And like I was starting to say, I believe that the issue of it breaking up on my skin wouldn't be as much of an issue if I hadn't powdered it. I think there was something about the combination of the powder. It was like the powder sitting on top of the product was sort of moving around kind of funny. I think it would have looked better if I hadn't powdered it, but then it would have been even more susceptible to being wiped away by a stray finger or the stray tip of a kitten's tail. Final thoughts. My first final thought is about my personal base product preferences, which I've really been learning more about over like the past 6 months. And this has just added a whole bunch more evidence to support the hypothesis that I was starting to form. I think I really prefer a highly pigmented formula that is emollient enough so that it can be manipulated into a very thin, physically thin application while still retaining its high level of pigment. I prefer that over a medium coverage product that can be built to full coverage by layering. Those are two different kinds of versatility. And it's the first kind that always works better for me because I think it's that medium pigment level, that sort of medium coverage that makes products like this wipe away or pick up when I touch them. So that is what I have learned about myself. And that's definitely one of the things that's causing me to not get along as well as I might have gotten along with this foundation. Now, I have to say, and maybe I should have said this during the how does it wear throughout the day portion. Although no, this is a final thought. It makes sense that this is here. This is another thing that's going on between this and me. Because I have dry skin, I've been very conscientious about moisturizing my skin and prepping my skin before I apply this. Because based on how it has behaved around the driest, these little parts of my face that are the driest right now, if my skin was on the dry side, if it was kind of like a dry-ish face day, and I went in with this product, I know that it would look worse than the way that it's been looking applied on top of nice, plump, moisturized, and prepped skin. However, I think that probably some of that moisturization and prepping is causing it to be less stable on my skin. That might be one of the other things that's causing it to lift up when I touch it, because there's so much moisturizer underneath. Not like a ton. It's not like I'm applying it over top of like a really thick layer of moisturizer. And again, today, I think I just had a bit of moisturizer that had been on my skin for a long time, like for hours before I went in with Crystal Nebula. It was just Crystal Nebula underneath it. And this is a lovely serum-y product, but it's not like uber emollient and slippy, and it's supposed to set down. It's supposed to be something you can wear underneath other products. But I think that if I had a different kind of skin, like maybe if I had oily skin and so I wasn't prepping it with so much moisturizing product, maybe it would set down more and be more matte and be more hardy, more sturdy. There might be something about both my skin type and the way that I'm prepping my skin for this product because of my skin type that's causing it not to be as self-setting as it could be on other people's skin. The finish is, I'll say it again, really, really, really beautiful. I mean, every time I applied it, my breath was taken away. Finish-wise, it's probably the best foundation that I've ever seen. Maybe not the best base product, because again, I really like the Rose Ink one, which is quite dewy, but more pigmented. And so it has this like evening quality, but it doesn't have, there's this like ethereal, glossy, smoothing thing that goes on with the Lisa Eldridge. And if you apply it over dewy, prepped skin, especially over an illuminating product like this, you can get a dewy look like the one that I got today instead of a more matte look. If you put it over a matte primer, which I have done, or if you put it over kind of like a neutral or a pore filling primer, it will look a bit more matte. But I've heard a lot of people saying, oh, it's very matte. It's a very matte foundation. You're gonna be surprised how matte it is. And I've found that it really, really depends on how you prep your skin. It is such a pleasure to apply it, especially on top of a luminous base, and to see the change in the skin, to see the way that the surface of the skin looks when it is smoothed over it. And because of that lovely experience, how luxurious it feels, how cosmetically elegant it is, because of all of that, in spite of the issues that I have with longevity, I would probably reach for it pretty frequently if the color match were more perfect. If the color match were perfect, right? If it were spot on in the way that some of my other base products are, if it were more neutral and more gray, I could see myself starting to use it quite a lot, especially for no makeup days, just like 1 or 2 pumps all over the face with my hands and go. As it is, the color isn't quite right, isn't quite as good as some other things that I have. And again, because I'm redness prone, I just hate looking even a little bit pinker than I actually am. As it is, I will probably take this home with me when I go home for the holidays and see if it's a perfect match for any of the members of my family, all of whom are very pale, but one of whom might have like slightly pinker skin than I do. I'm not exactly sure of everyone's undertones, but I'll take it, we'll do a little swatching, and then if someone wants it, I'll give it away to that person. And because I don't love it more than my Rose Ink concealer, because I don't love the formula more, I'm not really inclined to repurchase it in a shade that's closer to mine. And also, I don't know if any of the other shades are going to be more like this sort of like grayish neutral color that I use. I'm very curious though about my color match, and I am going to try to get my hands on some of those sample cards and just find out. If I do that, if I'm able to get my hands on some of those sample cards, I'll try to film a video, at the very least an overhead swatch video, comparing the lightest 8 shades to other products in my collection. I think that for a lot of people, this is going to be the dream foundation. And I think that all of its qualities are intentional, even the ones that are making it less than perfect for me. I think it is exactly what it's supposed to be. For me, the slight fussiness on my skin, having to worry about leaving a fingerprint on it, wiping it away, especially scratching my nose or wiping it off of my upper lip when I'm applying something to my lips, all of that fussiness makes it less compelling to me than my hyperpigmented base products that are sturdier because of their level of pigment, but are as skin-like because of their formulas. I find the Hourglass one to be pretty cakey no matter what I do, so I'm not including it in this group. But the Makeup Forever Ultra HD, the Rose Ink Concealer, both of these, I can apply a really thin layer of them so that they really look skin-like. They don't show up as makeup on my face like a lot of other base products do, and then they're hardy enough to withstand the wear and tear that I put my face through just on an everyday basis. And that's it, y'all. I'm not gonna cover price or cost per ounce or cost per wear or anything like that in this video. I think that the question of whether something like this is worth it is different for every person. It's relative. Worth, value in that way is relative to your budget, your income, how you interact with your makeup, how much you need a product like this compared to how much money you have to spend on products like this. Only you can answer for yourself the question of whether a purchase like this is going to be worth it to you. So all I can do is give you the tools to better answer that question for yourself from the side of how the product performs and what it's like. When it comes to like price and cost per use value questions, that's your work. You have to look at those things for yourself in your context. I hope that I've given you as much information as I possibly could have on my end. I hope that if you're considering buying this, I've helped you make your decision. Or if you're just curious about it, I hope that this has been entertaining to watch. I know that I often watch this kind of video about products that I'm not even vaguely considering buying just because I enjoy consuming this kind of content. So no matter what it is you came for, I hope that you got it. I really appreciate you for watching this, and especially for watching it all the way to the end. I know that this one has been a doozy. And I really, really hope you are taking extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.